Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium the Honorable California Attorney General, Kamala Devi Harris.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all. Madam Chief Justice, Governor Brown, all of the constitutional officers who I will be working with and look forward to that, members of Congress, members of the State Senate and Assembly, men and women of law enforcement and the Attorney General's office, honored guests, family, and friends. I simply want to say thank you. Thank you all. I am deeply humbled by the trust you have placed in me, and I will never forget that it is you, the people of the state of California, whom I serve. I've been asked many times over the last month, what does your election mean? Here's what I think it means. It means every Californian matters. No matter who you are or where you're from, young, old, rich, poor, gay, straight, north, south, whether you've lost a loved one to violence, whether your community is being held hostage by gangs, whether you've been shut out by mortgage fraud or scammed by online predators, whether your neighborhood is downstream or downwind from corporate pollution. Today, with this oath, we affirm the principle that every Californian matters. And it's important to remember our history. This wasn't always the case. We didn't always have Lady Justice balancing the scales with her blindfold and sword. In the early days of common law, there was no public prosecutor. People had to fend for themselves. Lone individuals were forced to press charges and present cases on their own, often compelled to weigh the balance of a family's livelihood against the immediate moral necessity of justice. It goes without saying, this was an especially oppressive system for everyday working people, a system that ultimately and tragically led many victims to seek justice outside the law. So I believe we should be especially proud as Americans that the office of the public prosecutor was one of the first legal innovations that emerged in the United States. To be sure, it is one of the most profound innovations in the entire history of the rule of law. And it was based on a rather revolutionary notion that a crime against any one of us is a crime against all of us. Many times I've looked into the eyes of a crime victim and repeated this promise. It's not you alone versus the defendant, it's the people of the state of California. Now, I grew up with a very personal understanding of the meaning of this promise. I am particularly proud to have started my career as a prosecutor in the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. And yes, it is an office with a long-standing reputation as one of the best in the country. That all began, of course, with Earl Warren, who was Alameda County's district attorney for 14 years and revered in the storied history of the office as a great modernizer and innovator. And through a lifetime of service, from the courtrooms of the East Bay to the California Attorney General's office to the chambers of the United States Supreme Court, Earl Warren never forgot that he was a prosecutor first, and by training, that meant the law stands for everyone. I remember there I was, a young Alameda County deputy DA, and I was also a member of the second class years before to integrate Berkeley Public Schools. A literal daughter of Brown versus the Board of Education, now invested with the power and the responsibility of enforcing the law and its promise of equal protection. As a career prosecutor, Earl Warren understood separate but equal was inherently unequal by the same logic that says a crime against any one of us is a crime against all of us. So, ladies and gentlemen, on this day, let us remember the house that Earl Warren built. It is often said that a good prosecutor wins convictions, but a great prosecutor has convictions. And Chief Justice Warren put it this way: everything I did in my life that was worthwhile, I caught hell for. So to my fellow Californians, I say, in the coming 4 years, and in the continuing work of the Attorney General's office, we are going to do whatever it takes. We are going to do whatever it takes and catch hell if necessary. In the cause of protecting and defending the lives and the livelihoods of all Californians by moving beyond the status quo. And I will tell you something. To do that, we are going to need to get tougher and smarter than we have ever been. For too long, our debates have been confused and divided by the false dichotomy painting someone as tough and others as soft. In too many cases, we have allowed politicians to sound tough without insisting on policies that are truly tough and sound. We have accepted a fundamental misdiagnosis of the problem, treating crime as a monolith with a one-size-fits-all solution, instead of recognizing that our approach in the overwhelming majority of nonviolent offenders is failing us badly. Being tough and smart means recognizing that we have a long-term imbalance in our criminal justice system in California, which we ignore at our own peril. When an appalling 70% of those released from our overburdened correctional system reappear in the revolving door within 3 years, when we spend twice as much on prisons as we invest in colleges and universities, and when we have organized violent criminal gangs continue to present an expanding threat across borders and prison walls, it is time to recognize the need for some drastic repair. And this much is obvious. With an ongoing budget crisis, we have to demand a much higher return on the enormous investment we are making. We have to be leaner and more muscular at the same time. Instead of throwing up our hands, folks, it's time we roll up our sleeves and confront weak results, substitute best practices for old habits, and work to make California the undisputed national leader in innovation in crime fighting.